Now 7 p.m. Tuesday, March 7, 2017. Would like to call the Sutton Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. Would everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we go into public forum, one of our residents, Peter Kintzer, was killed in a motor vehicle accident last Thursday on Sutton Ave. That's an extension of Central Turnpike. And we would like to have a moment of silence for him. Next would be public forum, limited to 5 minutes per topic. Discussion or comments about town employees or agency members shall be avoided so as not to violate individual rights. Is anyone here for public forum? Next would be the Board of Selectmen minutes for February 21st, 2017.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the minutes from February 21st, 2017 as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Next would be agenda item, Melanson and Heath, FY16 audit presentation. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have Scott McIntyre and, I don't know your name. Karen Burke here to present the audit results from 2016.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for the invitation to come in tonight and give you a very quick walkthrough of our audit of your financial statements. Again, my Scott McIntyre. I'm one of the shareholders at the firm. With me tonight is Karen Burke, audit manager, who oversaw the day-to-day execution of the audit here in Sutton. And again, we're here tonight to give you a quick walkthrough, tell you a little bit about the audit, walk through some of the high points in the numbers, and do have a couple of recommendations that we'd like to make, and then offer to answer any questions that the board may have, or at least try to answer any questions that the board may have. We think the most important communication that we can make to the board tonight is to just let you know that our audit of your financial statements went very well. And what we try to do is we try to put that in very straightforward language and let you know that what that really means is when we came in to perform our test work, we found the books and records to be in good order. Key balance sheet accounts were reconciled for the most part, were reconciled on a regular and timely basis. There is an issue in the management letter we'll talk about, but there's an excellent response that the town has provided in there, and it's not considered a significant deficiency or material weakness, but there was that issue we can talk about in the management letter. But in general, we found the books and records to be in very good working order and key accounts reconciled on a regular and timely basis. As we traditionally do, we like to break the financial statements down into two parts. There is both a long-term perspective and a short-term perspective set of financial statements in this one document that you have. The long-term perspective, which really begins over on page 18, 13. Page 13 and 14 are the long-term perspective financial statements. And last year, when I was here, we introduced an account that was new to Sutton's balance sheet. It was new to all cities and towns, not only just in the Commonwealth, but across the country. And that was the introduction of recording your net pension liability. And as you focus on page 13 of the PDF page 13 of the hard copy, if you're scrolling down, the PDF may be a different page number, but it's page 13 of the financial statements. And the focus here again is in that first column of numbers, and about 2 inches up from the bottom of that first column, you see two accounts. One is called the net OPEB obligation, and the one right below that is referred to as the net pension liability. That net pension liability first appeared on your balance sheet last year. The net OPEB obligation has been incrementally coming onto your balance sheet now for about 7 or 8 years. Again, this is the long-term perspective balance sheet. It is not your general fund, although your general fund is a component in here. We'll view the general fund very differently in just a minute. I focus on this long-term balance sheet just for a couple of minutes, and because there's so much news and a lot has been published about long-term perspective financial statements and the recording of a net OPEB obligation and a net pension liability. Sutton has these liabilities, as every town in the Commonwealth. The combination of those two liabilities is a little over $20 million. And you can see what that does. As liabilities go up, your net position or equity is going to decline. And you see that in that first column of numbers, the second number up from the bottom, where your unrestricted net position, in parentheses, indicating that the liabilities outweigh the assets by just under $16 million. It's really all driven by the recognition of those two long-term liabilities, the net OPEB obligation and the net pension liability. I think I failed to say that when I refer to OPEB, OPEB is an acronym for Other Post-Employment Benefits, and what they really mean by other is other than pension. Stated separately, it's the retiree health care. Those two liabilities are really the driving transactions, the key transactions on the long-term perspective financial statements. Over on the short-term perspective financial statements, page 15 of the financial statements, this is the first place that almost all readers are going to turn. There is an MD&A that precedes this and precedes the long-term perspective. That is a great resource to go back to at a later point in time, and it tells you in words and certain charts why certain account balances may have changed. I'm going to walk through some of the highlights of those changes here on page 15, but management's discussion and analysis is a great resource to go back to at a later point in time. So page 15, the general fund, that's really, again, where the first place that almost all readers will turn. As much information and as much publicity as the long-term perspective financials have received with a net OPEB obligation and a net pension liability, most readers are going to skip right over it and come to page 15 and focus on that third number up from the bottom in the first column, or your unassigned fund balance with an account balance as of June 30 of 2016 of $3,740,000. Now, that account balance is very consistent with the prior year. It was 3.729 a year ago. It's 3,740,000 this year. It's very consistent, showing a lot of stability in the town's balance sheet from fiscal year 15 to fiscal year 16. We think one really important aspect that the reader should understand about the general fund in the audited financial statements is that there is actually two funds included in there. That the town has stabilization funds that the town tracks as a trust fund, a separate fund in the ledger. It's consistent with the uniform municipal accounting system that really is prescribed by the Commonwealth, where the stabilization account is tracked separate from your general fund for day-to-day accounting and reporting purposes. But when it comes to the audit, the stabilization accounts get consolidated into your general fund here. So we just like to make sure that the reader understands that the general fund that you see here in the audit really ties back to two funds in the town's accounting system. What I would refer to as your traditional general fund plus your stabilization funds. Now take that a little bit further and to break down that key unassigned fund balance with an account balance of $3.7 million, as I indicated before. About 1.7 million of that is really your traditional general fund, and a little over 2 million of that 3.7 is your stabilization fund, your general stabilization fund. And again, that ratio between the traditional general fund and the general stabilization fund is very consistent from fiscal year 15 to fiscal year 16. And in total, that unassigned fund balance represents almost 13% of your fiscal year 16 expenditures, and that's really a percentage that indicates that the town has a strong balance sheet and a consistent balance sheet with other peer communities. Now, to take a look at why there's, to take a look at a couple of the operating statements, if I could quickly turn your attention over to page 17. Statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in fund balance. Again, the focus is on that general fund, and again, the focus would be further on the third number up from the bottom, where you see a change in fund balance. It's in parentheses indicating that the outflows of resources for fiscal year 16 exceeded the inflows by 101,000. With a budget of nearly 30 million. That's essentially a break-even operating results for fiscal year 16. And again, that goes to show you why your unassigned fund balance didn't change by very much, because you had break-even operating results. Another page that I think gets a lot of attention in walking through the financial statements is page 19. Now, 19 is a budget and actual comparative statement. The one thing that's going to be different here than the general fund balance sheet, where I indicated earlier on page 15, the general fund balance sheet was a consolidation of your general fund and your stabilization funds. This budget versus actual comparative statement on page 19 excludes the stabilization fund, so it's just general fund operating results. And the focus traditionally is on that last column of numbers on page 19. And again, from the top down, about halfway down the page in that last column of numbers, you see the total revenues and transfers in exceeded the budget by nearly $650,000. A good portion of that is coming from motor vehicle excise tax collections. About 2/3 of the way down the page, you see that you have total expenditures and transfers out with, again, a positive balance of $335,000. Those essentially mean they were unspent appropriations that were provided for the various departments. The combination of those two numbers gives you the subtotal following that of $985,000 in positive budgetary revenue and expenditure results. That has to be softened a little bit by the fact that the town voted to use some of its free cash to, provide appropriations for various departments or to the state stabilization account in fiscal year 16. And any time you do appropriate from your free cash, you are expecting the outflows of resources to exceed the inflows, because you're drawing on cash that's essentially already in your bank accounts. That's a very, very quick walkthrough. There's a tremendous amount of additional information in here. Page 20, 21, and 22 deal with some of your enterprise funds, followed by a wealth of footnote disclosures that include reconciliation pages between, I mentioned a couple of times the long-term perspective and the short-term perspective financial statements. There's reconciliation pages in there that help to connect the dots, if you will, between the two bases of accounting. When I say there's two sets of financial statements in there, it's not as if the town has two sets of books. They do not. They have one set of books, then you just present the information on, one is an accrual-based presentation, the other is a modified accrual basis. As far as some of our recommendations, I'm just going to talk very quickly about a few of them. I'm actually just going to turn to the table of contents just before our introductory letter and just walk through a couple of these. The first one is to establish formal departmental receipt policies and procedures. The key there is, we think, is the word formal, where auditors traditionally like to see things written policies and procedures are always better. I saw earlier tonight when I was in talking with the town accountant prior to coming into the meeting. This is something that we see is in process, and happy to see that and look for it to be concluded during fiscal year 17. In issue number 2, to improve some controls over the collector's accounts. I mentioned this from at the top when I talked about how our audit went well, and we did come across the issue in the tax collector's office with respect to a couple of accounts. As the town's response in the management letter indicates, there were some things that occurred during fiscal year 16, and some duties needed to be reassigned because of a leave of absence in that office. And when those duties were reassigned, it created for a period of time what we call a segregation of duties, or segregation of duties issue, where one person was controlling perhaps all elements of transactions, thereby increasing the risk that there could be errors or irregularities. We think that that's been resolved in FY17 as well. The third issue is to improve some controls over the journal entries. Again, the town's response, I think, is a sound one, indicating that the school will now be supplying the town accountant with full supporting documentation for any journal entry that they are looking for. Our fourth recommendation is to segregate and monitor police detail billings and collections. Earlier, I used the phrase segregation of duties. Again, I think this is a situation where there can be an improved segregation of duties so that the police department isn't handling all elements of the billing and collection over the police detail process. I think there can, if nothing else, some mitigating controls, such as some internal auditing and additional monitoring procedures can be put in. But we think the best avenue would be to consider moving the collections of police detail to the town collector. In our fifth recommendation is to improve some record keeping in with abatements and exemptions. We had trouble finding supporting documentation for one abatement. I think it was probably really an isolated incident. And then issues number 6, 7, and 8 are mostly informational. There's a couple of new GASB, or the government, GASB again is an acronym for the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, that will become applicable both in fiscal year 17, and then another related statement will be applicable in 18. It deals with that OPEB, or that other post-employment benefits. Certainly can talk more about that if the board would like. The seventh issue, again, mostly informational, is to prepare for some new single audit guidelines over procurement. Single audit would be applicable because the town is a recipient of federal dollars. There's been a lot of rule changes over, how what the internal controls need to be surrounding federal grants and the record keeping and expenditures of those dollars. One that's really critical is over procurement. It's critical enough that the standard setters in this case have sort of pushed off the requirement a little bit, basically to provide cities and towns a little more time to get ready to implement the new procurement standards. So it's just something to be aware of, and the text of the letter tries to outline some of the differences between what's now required under what is referred to as uniform guidance and the bid laws here in the Commonwealth. So just something the town should be aware of. And the last one deals with the Municipal Modernization Act, and I think at this point in time, the Commonwealth has put on a number of training sessions, and I think that the town accountant in the town have availed themselves. Some of the changes involve, what funds can be invested in, a lot of changes with respect to revolving accounts, and perhaps even the reauthorization of things like your OPEB trust may need to be done to be in compliance with the Municipal Modernization Act. So that is a super quick walkthrough of our audit of your financial statements and our management letter. Again, in general, our audit went very well. The financial statements, the long-term perspective, it's all about those two liabilities that I mentioned. In terms of your general fund, there's a lot of stability in that balance sheet. Consistency from year to year is generally viewed very favorably. And the key thing to remember is in that general fund, for audit purposes, it's presented as both the stabilization and the traditional general fund all in that one column. And with that, Karen and I will try to answer any questions that the board may have.
Before, you got anything, Tim, you want to say before we go to discussion?
I guess the only thing I'd like to add would be that, I think it's appropriate to compliment the staff here in the town hall for all the hard work they do preparing for the audit and the assistance provided to the auditors during the audit process. There's a lot of information gathering, and I think we do a very good job helping them out. Hopefully Karen would agree with that.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Okay. Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for your presentation. I was going to say thank you very much for an eminently approachable and readable document, but I'm kidding about that part.
I kind of figured as much. unless you're in this, I realize how tough they can be.
He is an accountant.
Okay.
Yeah, so he understands this
And
stuff.
nonetheless. So for those at home, this is about an 80-page document that we're looking at between the base financial statements and the management letter. But what I really appreciate is your opening statements. I mean, I think it is important for the town to know that when you come here, what you find are a good, clean set of books and records. So I think that it's appropriate to open with those statements. And Tim, I think your comments are also appropriate. As a former auditor, what I know is that the work that goes into this kind of audit is really significant. It takes a lot of time to put together, a lot of work to put together. And so I can imagine that the staff goes through a heck of a time preparing and going through the audit itself. So appreciate all the work that goes into it. You mentioned a couple of things that I just want to cover really quickly. You did say that our liabilities outweigh our assets, but to be clear for everybody, that's really driven by a couple of really long-term liabilities, that the OPEB and the net pension liabilities, and really doesn't reflect any kind of problem. I want to make sure that's heard.
I would
by the audience.
concur with that statement.
We at this point, we're recognizing on our balance sheet over $21 billion in liabilities for those two items alone, which really are, you're looking at 30 years worth of payouts for those kind of things in many cases. So again, I just want to make sure that's clear. You also use the phrase a strong and consistent balance sheet, which is, what we strive for here. And so it's nice to hear that from an independent resource. From my perspective, when I open these up every time, the first thing that I like to do is go to the management letter. And so I, again, appreciate your comments around the management letter, that the nature of the things that you found, you didn't find to be material, and that it seemed that you were clear, that you felt the responses to the items that you did report were thorough and appropriate.
I think the responses, I agree. I think the responses are thorough, well thought out, and action appears to be taken
Excellent.
to correct the,
So-
some housekeeping issues more than anything.
Okay.
I think the important thing to get across is that we do take the measurement letter seriously.
Yeah.
So, anything that's recommended, we take a step back, look at it, and see what can we do better.
Great. Well, that's really what I have, and I would just finish up with a congratulations for you, Tim, and for your whole team. I think this is it's a great job. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Paul?
Yes, I can't keep up with Dave. All right, thank you for a good audit. Audits aren't a bad thing to do. My question, it's just going to be one, quick and short. After we've heard all this information, Dave always kicks me with the right stuff to listen to. Where would you put the town of Sutton as it sits in a numerical number, from 1 to 10, of other towns? I know it's a tough question, of our size. Where do we fit? I'm not an auditor. Very well. I understand 1 to 10. Where are we?
Yeah. Well, putting a numerical number on that is really difficult. It's.
You're a numbers guy, right?
I'm a numbers guy, but I like to talk. I can see what number that is. It's 2 digits to it. Yeah,
That's good.
I think that, and I don't mean to really avoid your question here, but I think the most important communication for me or for our firm to make is letting you know that the audit went well. The fund balance in the general fund, I think it was like $3.7 million. I think without going back to my notes, it's 12%. That's a nice percentage. Generally speaking, rating agencies, as a rule of thumb, would like to see between 10 and 15%. I don't have enough information in my head to compare you to 100 other clients as I sit here and put a number on Sutton versus somebody else. So,
Good enough. Thank you.
thank you.
All set? Jesse?
Well, I'm not a numbers guy. I'm a teacher. So how about a letter grade? A minus? A minus, would that work? A plus, of course, for Tim and all the department heads on our end. Thank you for coming, both of you, Scott and Karen. I'm not a numbers guy by any means. and I could not imagine the complexity of having to go through our budget, because we get our budget books and, you know, they are immense. So going through item by item and making sure that everything aligns properly, everything is transparent. I mean, that's heavy lifting. So thank you for the effort that you put in for our town, because obviously our entire community benefits the services that you provide us. And hearing again that, for the most part, we're in good shape, it's definitely resounding kudos to all the parties involved, the financial team and all the department heads. So thank you to them as well. I'll be honest with you, I really don't have any significant questions. Again, in terms of the scale of where we fit, obviously OPEB and pension liability, you know, that's always a concern. I appreciate the fact that Dave, you know, clarified the fact that this is not something the town is responsible for next year, but it's, you know, it's long-term. And ironically, I think there was a piece in the Telegram and Gazette today, and all the towns are in similar positions, so. It's definitely going to lead to future conversations, I think. But again, at least for the position that we are from this audit, you know, we're in line with where we should be, which again is reassuring. Yeah, I don't want to hog the mic anymore. Thank you again for your efforts, and I look forward to going back and reading it a second time.
Mike?
Well, they already tried to get a letter and a number grade out of you, so I have no avenue on that end. Thanks to Tim and the team for putting everything together, first and foremost on that end. I remember going through this last year, and Selectman Maynard had mentioned, it's a good thing, you know, to be able to look at it and say, okay, you know, our team that represents the town does a great job, and to be able to have an auditor, a third party come in and reiterate that. And again, you know, with some suggestions on what we can do and what we can't do, or what we should do. And I'm positive with the team that we have in place that they'll take those suggestions and run with them and do what they feel's fit for the town. So next year when you guys are here, that you know, we're looking at other things. So thanks again for coming. These guys had covered everything, and thanks again to the team and the time they put in for getting this audit together.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Again, the people on the town side and your side, people don't change. We've been with the same type of people that had excellent reviews for several years. And I guess we kind of hope that we get those reviews all the time, and we expect those types of reviews. But the key thing here is for the work that you folks do, but it's also on the town side between Tim and Jim and our financial team and our department heads. When this comes about, everyone, you know, takes a step back and says, oh, we're going to be audited and this and that. But if you have nothing to hide and you do everything with good faith and put everything forward and make a few recommendations here and there, we've done that. And I think that's what I'm proud of when you come in and give us your reports within a matter of time through Tim and Jim, that we try to compensate and take your recommendations and try to do something a step better. We try to be one cut above, and I think that's important to us. The other thing, like Dave mentioned, and my other colleagues, is the OPEB. I can remember years ago, I never knew what it was, never knew what it stood for, and I don't think I was alone, not only in this town, but in many towns. I think you're right. And the numbers were scary. But I'm going to say, as being the chairman and part of this board with these members, that we take that very seriously. And I say, for my own being, that we're ahead of the curve. We've made sure that we've noticed this type of account, and we try to put money into this thing, and we've been educated with it. So, you know, I don't know if we'll ever catch up, but our intention is to make sure that we do the right thing, and I think that we do. And lastly, thank you again for coming in and being so thorough and so complete. We welcome you to come into this town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Set?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next agenda item is our COA Director Michelle Edelstein. Michelle?
Welcome back.
Hey. Well, thank you so much for having me again, my captive audience. I really appreciate it. I wanted to take this opportunity to talk to you about our fundraising season that's kicked into high gear right now. The month of March is March for Meals, which is our biggest program and the crowning program of your town, the Meals on Wheels program, so that no senior goes hungry. Currently, right now, out of the senior center, we serve, on average, 50 seniors in town through Meals on Wheels. So they get a hot meal delivered to them every day, with the exception of Saturday and Sunday, in which they get typically a frozen meal that they can microwave over the weekend. And it is delivered by a volunteer driver, and that volunteer driver is responsible for not only bringing that meal, but it's that little extra set of eyes, making sure you're okay in your house. Did you eat your meals from the other day? How are you doing? It's almost like that little well-being check, which has been fantastic. I hate to pull Paul Maynard out on the carpet, but when he was our fire chief, he remembers many times where someone would call from the senior center that a Meals on Wheels client wasn't answering their door, and they were found, maybe, God forbid, on the bottom of their stairs, or passed out from dehydration or something. There's several of those situations in which our Meals on Wheels drivers made a huge difference in that person's life. So what we do right now with the funds that we're doing for fundraising is 100% of those funds that come in stay in your community to continue to bring those meals to seniors, whether they're Meals on Wheels or they come to the senior center for a light breakfast in the morning, or maybe they're coming for lunch. Even though it's a $3 suggested donation, the key word there is suggested. It is not necessary. We don't, look to make sure you put it in there. If you can afford it, that's great. If you can't, no one's going to say anything about it. That has been a blessing, to keep some sort of a hot meal in someone's hands. It's very important for this reason, because many families maybe live in other states or other towns and they can't get there to check on their loved one. Maybe they don't have any kids or anybody that's really around to check on them. And that's where we come in. And that's where our Meals on Wheels program comes in. So it's extremely important during this time that we focus on our elder meal program. We have a lot of great fundraisers coming up. We had a great one this past Friday. We had a dance with the radio station. Dave O'Gara, Adam Webster came down and spun some tunes. We danced. We raised $250 towards the meal program, which is just a little bit towards the lofty goal that I have set, which isn't a number just yet. I want to see how high we can get that going. On March 22nd, we're having a cook-off between our very own Diane Hanley, which you all know is a fantastic cook. We're calling her Sugar Ray Hanley because it's a cook-off between her and the Sheriff's Department. So the Sheriff's Department, Worcester County Sheriff's Department, a gentleman there by the name of Joe, they're going to make manicotti and meatballs. We have some judges, Jim Smith being one of them. So we have some judges coming down to judge that. It's $6. It's at lunchtime, so March 22nd at 11:45. We'll be serving that up, see who's the big winner. It better be Diane. So we will never hear the end of it. But anyhow, it's $6. Again, all the proceeds are going right towards the Meals on Wheels program. Again, 100% of the funds go in, 100% stays right to the meal program. It goes right back into bringing those meals right into the hands of people. Then on March 31st, it's a Friday. Is it a Friday? I think it's a Friday. March 31st, the Sutton Honor Society honor students are coming down and they're making a breakfast. And the breakfast is going to be at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's $4, And again, all those proceeds are going right towards the meal program. So we have a lot of opportunities there to help with that meal program to hopefully keep our seniors safe, not only safe, but to have that hot meal at home. If I say it once, I'll say it a million times. We have to build these programs. We have to keep them going the best we can for not only myself, your kids, yourselves, for future generations. We worry a lot about the future. Well, that is the future. Making sure that when you're older, you have these social service programs, that you have that person who's going to check on you when your kids are working or if you don't have any families. So really, I'm just here to hold you captive, to let you know that we have all these fundraising events. If anybody's interested in donating to the meal program, they can certainly contact me at the Senior Center, or you can contact Michelle Saucier at the Senior Center. She's our meal program director, does a fantastic job, and we can give you further information on how to do that. So that's my spiel. Short and sweet, guys. Isn't that great?
Dave?
Hang on, I'm trying to add this senior center thing to my calendar here.
Yay.
Thank you for coming by.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No, we love having you here. So you just told us at the end how to donate. We can just donate if we'd like to donate?
You can just donate, yep. We prefer, like, if you're going to make a financial donation, it comes in a check. You can make it to Tri-Valley, but if Tri-Valley Inc., and on the bottom in the memo section, if you could please put Sutton Meal Program, and you could send that in to us, and we'll make sure that we're trying to keep track of everything that comes in. So if it comes down to us, that would be great, so we can kind of tally up and keep where it's going, and then we'll present it to Tri-Valley for the Sutton meals.
Okay, so they can mail it to you at the senior center,
Yes.
or bring it to you at the senior center?
Either one. We love the visitors, so come on down, Monday through Friday, 8 to 3.
Well, I don't really have much to add, except, as always, congratulations. You guys do a great job, and the service that you provide through this program and all the other programs is so important to the town.
Yeah.
Vital to the things that we do. If somebody at home is listening to this
Yes.
and thinks that they might have a senior who perhaps could benefit from the program, how would they go about making that?
Certainly. You can call the Senior Center, 508-234-0703, or you can come on down, talk to us, and we can prepare a home visit through Tri-Valley and a needs assessment. We also have, they also have a dietitian who works out if you have diabetes or high sodium issues, so that the meal that's coming to you is kind of tailored around what you should be eating. And they will set you up with that program. You don't need to have it every day. You could have it every other day. Maybe you just want weekend meals. So they can definitely tailor that around.
Great. And don't be shy about doing it.
No, don't be shy, because it's here for you. It's your
Right.
taxpayer dollars at work, so use it up.
Excellent. And I just cannot believe that Diane could ever lose. It's just
I
not,
know,
it isn't
right?
possible.
Oh, better than you.
They got to pick them with guns.
Right, that's true. That's true.
Well, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Paul?
How's your older bus doing?
Elder Bus is doing okay. It's not bad. If you need to get to, that's a really good question. Let's say if you needed to come to meals, you wanted to get out of your house and come and have a meal. If you call Elder Bus, you can get in touch with me. We can hook you up with Elder Bus. Elder Bus will bring you over for your meal. Maybe you want to stay for an activity. Maybe you just want to get out of your house for a while. They will bring you down there just before lunch. They will pick you up after lunch or after whatever program you want to stay for and bring you back home. Again, with the meals, if you're coming for lunch, you just have to give us 48 hours notice, as the same with Elder Bus. So we know how to schedule everything, make sure we have enough food, make sure we have the ridership. So
Elder bus stretching out now? Milford Hospital?
they are.
What's
Elder
the-
Bus is actually reaching out because of more usage, which has been fantastic. We've touted this for a long time. This is a program that you need to use if you can. If you're handicapped or elderly, you're more than welcome to use ElderBus. You can contact me. We can hook you up with ElderBus to bring you to all different areas now. They're really expanding, as well as the potential of taking you to work. If you meet the criteria, if you want a part-time job or something, they will take you to work. So there's a lot of different things there that are being offered by ElderBus now because of the need. And finally, that's nice to see all that need. People coming forward and saying something, because how can you get into Worcester for $1.25?
Yeah.
It's fantastic, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, Michelle.
Hey.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. My feet are still
Are
throbbing
your
from
feet?
the dance.
Thank you for coming down and dancing the
David
night
and
away.
Adam, last year the tempo of the music was a little low key, a little more slow dancing.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a slow song in the
No.
rotation.
Did you see? There's a whole new crop of seniors now.
A lot of new faces.
There are a lot of new faces. We are definitely a younger group, and so that's nice that our future is really active. They like doing that stuff, so it's cool.
One of them
And
was
that-
named Jesse.
Oh, there was. Ouch. Yes.
Thanks, I appreciate that. A love,
Yes,
love.
it was. Yes, it was.
The one thing that I noticed the most is that everybody, whenever I go into the clubhouse, is smiling.
Yeah.
I think that attests a lot to you and Diane and Michelle and Clark.
Yeah.
And everyone who goes down there. And like you said, you just don't go down there just to get a meal. I mean, you can, obviously,
you
because
can.
the social dynamic.
Yes, absolutely.
You have other programs, you have for seniors how they can learn computers and, internet safety. And there's been some programs. Spanish. Habla español muy bueno. My daughter's going to yell at me because I know that's not grammatically correct. Cards, sorry, board games. So again, if there's anyone interested in going and participating in the meals program,
Right.
it's much more than that.
It really is, and especially if you see Clark rattling around in the building, because it's nice to say that we have cards and all these kind of fun things that go on, which is the social aspect. But when you have someone as professional as Clark there, you have outreach, financial assistance, grief support, Shine Counseling, which is serving the health information needs of elders, along with Pat Morris. You have a lot of professional services there that allow people education and not to be so nervous about things that come down the pike. So,
And not be isolated.
correct.
Because as you hear frequently on the news, when you get
Yes.
to a senior and if you don't have family that is close at home,
Yeah.
sometimes they just kind of bar themselves in and there's
Yeah.
no need because it's a warm, fun, welcoming
Right.
place. So
Yeah.
absolutely. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Thanks.
One of my
Well,
favorite spots.
Listen,
in
we
town.
love having you down there, so thank
We'll
you.
be down there on March 17th participating on Meals on Wheels.
Right. Oh, that's wonderful. So also on March 17th, we have the Sutton fifth grade chorus there. And they're going to be singing some Irish songs and all kinds of. So I don't know what's happening at the senior center at St. Patrick's Day, but it should be fun. So
Lots of shenanigans. I'm
lots
sure.
of shenanigans, absolutely.
I have nothing else. Thank you.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Michelle, for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for coming down the other day.
Yeah, you're welcome. Just to reiterate what has been said already, just the fact that it's not just a place to go to get a hot meal or to have a meal delivered, but it's also the social aspect, to get people out of the house, to keep them out of that, especially during the winter time.
Right.
When it's tough to get outdoors, but to get out and be around other people and socialize and learn new things, not feel like you're left behind.
The good thing about that is not everybody is social. Not everybody wants to get out and, mix it up. So
Extrovert.
let's just say, right. So let's just say you're at home and, you don't want to come out. But you know what? We've got a great group of friendly visitors that will go to your house, maybe bring a cup of tea or some cookies or just check on you along with the meal program. So you don't need to get out. If you are kind of socially isolated, we encourage you to get out. But if not, and if you know somebody who's just kind of sitting in their house being kind of curmudgeon-y, we have great friendly visitors that can just go over and check on you, see if there's anything you need, maybe brighten your day a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So to donate, it's Tri-Valley Inc.,
Yes.
Memo, Sutton Senior Center,
Yes, our Sutton Meal
Sutton
Program.
Meal Program.
Yep.
They can either contact you
Yes.
or Michelle.
Correct.
to find out what else they can do for the
Yes.
donations. And along with, if they can't donate their time, they
Right.
can still donate the money.
Yes.
Because
yes.
it's always needed.
Yep. We're always looking for Meals on Wheels drivers, help in the kitchen, getting those meals out in the mornings. So if anybody out there in TV land is looking for a really, really great opportunity to meet some terrific people, drive to their house, drop off some meals, make sure they're okay. It's a couple hours out of your day. Feel free to do that. That'd be great.
And the routes are all planned out for you.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you just pick up
absolutely.
the meals and you go.
That's
They
it.
tell you the numbers to go to. They have everything
Yes.
prepared. So you don't
Everything's
have
ready to
do
go.
that.
Yep.
And you can go and just do your.
Yep.
So what was the number again? 508?
234-0703.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Start the phones ringing.
Right, there we go. Right, I should have them all back there. Just
We'll have our special guest after this commercial break.
right, we should.
Coming into the telethon.
Right. Very good. Yeah.
No more. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. But thank you, Michelle, very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle, again. We
Yeah.
always look forward to seeing you.
Thanks. I
And,
appreciate you having me
do
down.
Such a great job there.
Now they do a great job. I just get to talk a lot.
Takes a leader. And, you are that, But
Thanks.
Thanks again. And I think it's important for people to not only go there, but if they can, to send in their donation.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. So I look forward to seeing you down there.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thanks.
coming.
Thanks, Jim.
Michelle.
Thanks.
Next would be, under the agenda, would be dual representation letter, nursing services, IMA with Charlton. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've been down this road 10 times in the past, and this is the 11th request. This is, first of all, we need the board to sign a dual representation letter. Our attorneys, KP Law, formerly Copeland and Page, are representing both Charlton and the town of Sutton. So in order for KP Law to draw up the agreement, the intermunicipal agreement, we need the board to authorize dual representation. I've also included the draft IMA as well in the next agenda item. But the first step is to approve the dual representation. If the board is okay with that, then I present the IMA shortly thereafter. It's become pretty common procedure for us to do these IMAs, particularly around nursing service. Cheryl Rowinski does a great job with this. She's been doing it for a number of years. The town, she benefits as well from her paycheck, but the town also receives some money from these IMAs. I think last year we exceeded $20,000 from these intermunicipal agreements. So it's really a win-win situation for both of us. So,
We have a motion on the floor.
Mr. Chairman, agenda number 4, motion to approve the dual representation enclosed following KP Law, Copeland and Page to represent the towns of Sutton and Charlton regarding nursing services in an intermunicipal agreement.
Second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. And the next part of it, Jim, is
yeah, we have, town council's drafted, pretty much it's, boilerplate at this point in time. We've done so many of them. We charge the same rate we've charged other communities, $75 per hour. There are no changes to this, and I'm just asking for the board's approval of this.
Who's going to be the nurse?
Cheryl, Cheryl will. Cheryl continues to do the job.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised that, but she always has a list of people that she can call on for additional nurses that if they're needed. But I don't, I haven't had any feedback that they're needed at this point.
And these are like general nursing duties? Is this sort of like
Yeah,
focused on a
this is
particular area that they're looking for?
it's particularly busy in the fall when she does these flu clinics across not only the town of Sutton and the senior center and so forth, but across all of these communities. And then she typically calls on other nurses to assist her with that. And that's in all towns, Webster, Brookfield, Millbury, Charlton, West Boylston, et cetera. That's the busiest time, but there are day-to-day routines that she needs to follow, particularly if a community has a TB case, or other communicable diseases that are outbreaks, then that's extra work that she has to put in and deal with. But it seems to be going well.
Are there like reporting issues that she needs to deal with and things like that? Or?
There are, and she gets a lot of help from her assistant in the office, Judy Bader, helps her out a lot with that.
Yep.
So Cheryl does the work, goes out to these communities and provides the service. If there's any reporting, it's typically done by her assistant, Judy.
So I think the typical question that usually comes up at this stage is just around her capacity to handle the work. Some of these things, it seems to me, have been very targeted around either the flu clinics or other very focused things. This sounds more broad in its scope.
Well, they're all the same. I mean, all the IMAs are exactly identical. It's just that most of the work is done off a computer, tracking diseases and reporting those diseases to the state Board of Health. There is some interaction with these communities when there's a communicable disease outbreak. I don't know the recent ones, but tuberculosis is a common one. There are communities that have these outbreaks, and Cheryl has to report on them. Every once in a while, she has to go to that community and see that the patient takes the medicine for that particular condition. So they need a nurse to supervise them taking the medicine. And she does that, and that puts a little bit of a strain on her. But, she typically schedules first thing in the morning to deal with that, and then the rest of the day, her day is dedicated to Sutton.
But what you're telling us is that your feeling and her feeling both are that this is...
I'm obviously, I've mentioned this in the past, I am feeling like she's getting close to her capacity, but that's my personal opinion. I talk to Cheryl all the time, and she tells me that she can handle it. It's not a major deal. But I am concerned. She is one of my department heads, and I look out for her well-being. Cheryl actually brought this to me. She wanted to do this, and she's been the biggest recruiter of this type of IMAs. She works a lot with the Regional Health Association. She sponsors a meeting here in this meeting room, and has a luncheon here. It's coming from her, and we've talked about her not overworking herself. So
just have to keep her healthy.
I know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Paul?
Agenda? No, I'm set.
Jesse?
Yeah, I'd just like to obviously echo Dave's concerns. There's only so much time in the day, and I understand because I remember she's mentioned it several times when she's appeared before us, the same statement that most of it is done behind the desk. But ultimately, you only can be in so many places at one time, and the last I knew it was kind of one. So I just don't want her to assume too much, because if she takes too much on, as we all know, then she'll get stretched thin, and then potential for mistakes or injury or something more substantial. And obviously, we all love Cheryl, and we don't want to see that happen. So
Right.
I'm okay with this one, but again, the next one, I might question it a little more.
Okay.
I noticed that there's a termination in there too. Anytime if we feel like it is overwhelming,
Yeah.
we have 30 days to terminate.
Yeah,
out.
there are a number of outs in this. It's a 1-year agreement, essentially. We can renew it annually for up to, I think, 20 years, but it is a 1-year commitment. And we can get out of it relatively easy.
And she can always take on extra nurses, which take a piece of the pie, but we're still getting our piece of the pie as a town.
Yes, that's correct.
So it's not that she's doing any more work than she would be doing today, but we'd still be benefiting from it as
Yes,
a town.
we would.
So I would see, my thought is, as long as she can handle it, take on as many as we can. Because it seems like Cheryl, from talking with her, that she seemed like if I needed people, I could get them. They're at my disposal anytime. So,
Yeah, she does have a crew of people that
Yeah.
she can call on.
so thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. And, Jim, I'm okay with it because I kind of know Cheryl for quite some time now, and I know her ability to work. And the most important thing is her communication with you, and you're okay with it. That makes me okay with it. But I think what Jesse said and the rest of the colleagues, we're getting up to a point where we just want to give her some protection.
Yeah,
So,
I hear that.
with that said, there's a motion on the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the IMA between the town of Sutton and the town of Charlton for public health nursing services.
Second?
The motion's been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Good. Next would be on the agenda, a town administrator's update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually have a number of updates, a couple additional ones, but I'll try to go through them quickly. The Finance Committee will start their public hearings on March 16th. The general meeting is, first meeting is Tim Harrison and myself present our various budgets that we control. The library will also be at that meeting. The second night is the busier night. We'll have highway, police, fire, sewer, and the school department. So that'll be a long agenda. And I think Blackstone Vocational School will also be at that meeting. Then the last meeting is generally citizens petitions and articles for the warrant. That right now it's tentatively the end of March, but it may be in April at some point. But at least they will continue the second meeting, and they will name the date at that point in time. I just want to give the board a heads up. Rufus Putnam roof has been completed well within the budget. We also had the contractor deal with some issues on Town Hall roof, where some shingles had blown off for a few extra dollars, well within the budget. I'd like to thank John Kuchar, who was the project manager on this, identified the shingles on the back of Town Hall, saying they need to be done. John is just an invaluable resource to the town. He's a project manager. He's essentially head custodian overseeing a town hall and the operations. As a side note, he chaired the Board of Building Regulations meeting today. He was the chairman of that meeting. We all know that he is on that board as an appointment of Governor Baker, but he chaired his first meeting. He's vice chairman, and he chaired it. So I want to recognize that, and I'm sure it went well. He's been practicing all week long with us, so it'll be interesting how it went. Insurance Advisory Committee meeting met on Wednesday, March 1st. The committee decided to go out to bid for healthcare. We'll have to wait a few weeks to get those results, and ultimately the IAC will make a recommendation. We've been with Maya for a long time. Blue Cross Blue Shield. Maya is actually the middleman, but Blue Cross Blue Shield is the provider. And it doesn't mean that that we're going to leave Maya. We're just testing the market, seeing what's out there. And if we get a very good bid and Maya can't meet it, then we'll likely go to another carrier. But we need to get more realistic. A deductible plan versus copays. We need to become more competitive with the private market, essentially. Providing these lush benefits is terrific when you have the money, but we just don't have the resources to continue to provide it. Fire Department duty crew addition, we've added a new firefighter to the daytime duty crew. We advertised and awarded Tom Briggs that position. It's been a tough last year. We have one full-time duty crew out on long-term disability leave. And hopefully that individual is back at some point. But that individual has been struggling with issues, and hopefully she's seeing a doctor, and hopefully we'll get those issues remedied and be back before too long. But it just became very difficult for the chief and one duty crew member to do all the different responsibilities of the daytime crew. So hopefully that individual comes back shortly. It is fully budgeted in the budget for FY18 as well, so the positions are all set. Green Line Velo would like to hold their annual cycling race through town on Sunday, June 11th. This is, I think, their 7th year they've come to town. Representatives from Green Line Velo will be at our next meeting, March 21st, to represent their plan. We've had some issues in the past with one or two residents where they've had issues going up, particularly up Barnett Road, because the direction goes in the opposite direction from where they wanted to go. So there were some issues, and hopefully we can address those issues at the next meeting. Auction of 530 Central Turnpike. The town acquired this property through the tax title foreclosure process. The 1-year right of redemption has expired, so it's fully town-owned at this point. We have hired Paul Zikos to conduct an auction on April 4th at 11 a.m. at that site. That site is, you see a mailbox on the right-hand side going down Central Turnpike, right across from Stevenson's farm, the yellow house at end of
The corner.
Mendon Road and Central Turnpike, and 532 is the mailbox. Because there's two properties at that location. 532 is an existing house, but there's a common driveway that leads to the back lot, which is a retreat lot. It's 5 acres, and it's an unpaved driveway at this point in time. So it'll take a little investment, but ultimately it's a buildable lot. This Paul Zikos, we've used him in the past at a property down in Manchog. I think it was 4 Morse Road. Thanks, Deb. And he did a great job. And so hopefully he has success with this property as well. 146 bridge demolition in Millbury. I've attached a notice of updates. This issue, I'm sure you've all read about it either on Facebook or some other site. The road work at West Main Street in Millbury will start on Sunday, March 12th from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. daily. No one will be able to pass under the Main Street Bridge during those hours. So we'll have to wait and see how that works out, but this is just an update for the public, so everybody's aware of it. 2 other quick updates. We had a MIPA meeting last Thursday regarding Mellow Pond dams. Those are off West Sutton Road. There are 5 dams leading up to Lake Singletary. We are actually preparing a letter to the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs regarding expanding the scope of this project to include sediment analysis to make sure that there is no additional sediment going into Lake Singletary. That's our primary concern as a community. I think there are a number of representatives from Lake Singletary Association in attendance. That was their primary concern. So there were other concerns, loss of these impounded water behind dams. There were certain elements that wanted the fishing to remain and so forth. But the bottom line is Office of Dam Safety and Fisheries and Wildlife just don't have the budget to maintain these dams. They have hundreds of dams across the Commonwealth. Their budget is $500,000 a year, and they hope to increase that, but we're hoping to increase Chapter 70. So it's really a fight for minimal resources in the state. So, but I am working with Jennifer Hager on a letter to the Secretary to increase the scope of this project. Library trustees will be at our next meeting. They are looking for control of the land at Shaw Farm, the certain parcel of land that the library will be located on. According to the construction grant that they're applying for before the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, they are required to show control of the land. And I pushed back a little bit initially, saying the town controls the land, therefore the library can build on that land with town meeting approval and so forth. That wasn't good enough for the grant. They needed to show specifically that the 3 trustees of the library have control of this parcel of land where the library is planning to go. Of course, that is pending, and I will make what we're planning on is not deeding the land to them. We're planning on a 99-year lease of that parcel of land, pending town meeting approval, pending a vote of the residents to support a debt exclusion override, and pending, obviously, the grant approval. So all of these things would have to happen to have the library gain control of that parcel of land. So hopefully the trustees can explain from their perspective of why they need that. I understand why they need that. And it's happened across the Commonwealth that, the Mass Board of Library Commissions insist that the library has control of the parcel of land, even though it's town-owned. That's all I have for updates at this point.
Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excellent update as always.
Thank you.
Could you just give us a 30-second overview of how your presentation to the Finance Committee went for the budget? Any issues, control?
It went well. No, it went well. The Finance Committee is a great group. They're getting stronger and stronger as far as, getting into the details of everything. We'll get further into the details as departments present. But their primary, the chairman, Jeff Bannon, who's great, his big concern was OPEB. And we heard tonight about the whole OPEB liability and how it continues to increase. The Worcester Telegram had a nice article today that shows that their liability is exceeding their budget by well over $100 million. So, the benefit to us is our liability is less than half of our existing budget. So we're on the positive side of that. So there were a lot of questions about that. There were questions about the capital plan, going in depth about one of our capital plan items is digitizing payroll records. And, Pat Morris, who's another great member, questioned that, the need for that. It forced me to go back and look into why we need to digitize these records. And according to the Secretary of State, we need to retain annual long-term payroll for 75 years. So, that's, right now we have teachers coming over to our safe over here in the break room, opening up, big, massive books looking for their payroll records. The concern with that is it opens up liability to us because all the Social Security numbers are available to anybody that, nothing's happened, but to prevent, future fraud and so forth, we want to do that. But there were a lot of good questions. I'm always excited to present to the Finance Committee because they really dig deeper, no offense to the board just doesn't have time to focus so much. That's the Finance Committee's primary role, is to dig deep into that.
And are you going to speak about the capital plan, do you think, in more detail on that first night where you and Tim were presenting?
I presented the capital plan that night, and there were a few questions on that capital plan.
So I guess
and then a number of the items are related specifically to the departments. There are a few town items in there, but most of the capital plan are from the police, fire, highway, and so forth, and I expect those department heads to explain those capital items.
So to plug the Finance Committee a little bit, those public hearings for all of the departments, your section and all of the individual departments are really a great opportunity for the town's folk to really get some deeper insight into what's going on within those departments. So attend or watch or something. Those are good meetings to have. So
right.
Congratulations to John Kuchar. That's a great thing
Yeah.
for him. It's a great thing for the town. The more that our folks get to do things like that, that's professional development for those people, and we benefit on the backside for that. So
Yeah, he's chairing a board meeting that it's up at the State House, and it's a statewide board.
Right.
And that's a major accomplishment.
It sure is.
And we obviously benefit from the recognition.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows Sutton now because of the various roles that our department heads, not only John but Matt Belcito and all the police chief was chair of the Central Mass, representing 70 communities. So
And just professional development and the things that he learns. I mean,
Right.
exposure to the issues that come up at that level, it's a great thing for us.
Did he bring him any maple syrup, Jim, you think?
I don't know. I don't know that you need to sweeten them up at all.
Just a quick question on the Insurance Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
Does Maya really only represent Blue Cross, or are they outbidding every year?
No,
for other
Maya,
carriers?
Maya's one carrier, Maya's the carrier of, and Blue Cross is the provider. And you know, what, Blue Cross is a great organization. I mean, Maya is a great organization. They represent well over 100 communities in the state. And if you read the Boston Globe recently, I think, you know, within the last week or so, there was an article that Maya was the one, I'm sorry, Blue Cross was the one organization that had profits, ended the year profitable in 2016. You know, all the other providers lost money.
Right.
And they made money for a reason. And, you know, they are good. They do charge a lot. You know, participating in Maya, it softens the blow. You know, if you have a bad year, they kind of keep the rate low because other people are picking up more. Our experience is not, in my opinion, not worthy of the 13.3% increase. It's 0.94, which is probably more like, in our opinion, a 10% or an 8% increase. So I think testing the market is nothing wrong with that. We could always stay with Maya, but it really just depends on the results of that. And the other thing is, excuse me, you know, Maya provides a few plans that Blue Cross is comfortable with. They don't provide an HSA, for example, a health savings account with high deductible plans. They just provide deductibles, $300 for individual, max $900 for families. That's essentially what they provide. They're pretty much standard.
Cookie cutter type.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, when you go outside that, Harvard Pilgrim, Fallon, Tufts, they all provide all sorts of different options, higher deductibles, where there's a greater premium savings for the town and for the individuals. Obviously, more investment that we need to make, so.
So you're looking at some of these plan design changes at the same time that you're looking at other carriers?
Yes, we are.
Excellent.
Yeah, we will go with a deductible plan this year. We'll still have co-pays, but we're going to add deductibles on top of that.
Okay. Awesome. If I could just quickly skip down to the MIPA meeting. I was hoping to make that and just couldn't get out of work to get here. So anything at this point that I'm saying is all hearsay because I don't actually know what was said at the meeting. I guess what I had heard in advance was that some people at least felt like this seemed to be a rush to action, that some of the plans were apparently going to be acted on reasonably quickly as these things go. So I think I'm appreciative of the letter that you intend to write to just get more information about what's happening. Certainly all the investment on the lake in terms of property values, but also in terms of the amount of money and effort to keep that lake as clean as it is has been going on for years. So certainly I can understand how there's a lot of sensitivity to anything that could affect that. So I think it's important for us to.
I did get an email late this afternoon that the deadline for comment was this Friday. They've extended that comment period to, I think, March 24th, which is a couple weeks away.
Yeah.
And probably in large part by the number of people that attended that meeting and the comments that they made.
Great. Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad to hear that we're just going to ask the appropriate questions. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jim.
Paul?
Yes, thanks, Jim. On the Merrill Pond dams, is that just testing for filtration, or are they opening the dams?
They are, in most cases, eliminating some dams. And I can't, there are 5 dams, I think. There's Schoolhouse Dam, there's, there are a number of dams that they are opening up and becoming essentially, there'll be some impounded water, but most of them will revert back to wetlands. And then they're going to do some culvert repair down beyond, what dam is that? beyond Schoolhouse Dam, and I don't know what that last dam is. I'm sorry for the. So yeah, that.
Okay.
Sucker Brook?
No, I don't think so. I think it's the last. It's before the road. It's the road crossing of West Singletary Road. There's a culvert in there that needs to be repaired and expanded. They're going to do a box culvert, which will allow for small mammals to get through it. But yeah.
All right. On the Green Line Velo, you already touched on it, but just be respectful to the people on the highway, on the roadway. They are the residents, and we'll bring that up again also.
Yeah.
And thank you for all the rest.
Sure.
Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'll try to touch upon points that were not touched upon by my colleagues. Rufus Putnam, I think that's fantastic. As I mentioned at the last meeting, and as other people in the community know, that's the closest thing we have to a town museum.
Right.
So the fact that we were able to allocate monies to replace the roof, it goes to preserving the artifacts that are contained there within. And the fact that it not only came under budget, but there was enough to repair missing shingles on Town Hall.
Yeah.
Again, this is our town hall. We don't want the water coming in. So
Right.
that was excellent. Good work on John Kuchar's behalf. And I will personally give John props because he's got to come sign off on an article. Not an article. Oh, geez, what am I thinking?
Building permit?
Building
Yay.
permit at my house. So
Yeah.
I have an appointment. So
All right, good.
we'll give him
I'll have him
praise
bring
in
his
person.
gavel, yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Insurance, hey, we're in interesting times and the costs are becoming extraordinary. And while on one hand, we want to make sure that we're providing benefits to our employees because they work so hard for us, on the other, we don't want to break the backs of the taxpayers. So I am all for competition because you never know what we're going to find.
Right.
We may find that we are actually better off than going through other avenues, or we may find the reverse. So I think it's definitely appropriate action, and I look forward to seeing what the results will be.
Yeah.
Fire Department addition, definitely a supporter of that. Last summer, I did spend a day doing a ride-along, and literally it was just the chief and Lieutenant Dresser.
Exactly.
And I felt like I was just being passed from one vehicle to the next because I get to spend part of the day with the chief and part of the day with the lieutenant because they were on opposite sides of the town.
Yeah.
And just having an extra body available will increase response time and ensure the well-being of the community. So I think that was a right move, and hopefully everything will work out for the best.
Yeah.
Let me see, what else do we have? On the lease with the library land.
Yeah.
99-year lease. Apparently it's appropriate, so I won't question that. But provided the contingencies are not met, everything, it will fully revert to the town.
It'll never
correct?
go to the library.
Okay.
If all those conditions are not met, essentially.
And
So the board will sign this 99-year lease, and town meeting will have to authorize it, because it'll be an article at town meeting. But it'll be pending town meeting approval of a construction grant, if they get a construction grant, when they get the construction grant. All these caveats need to go.
funding approval, yeah.
If they don't go, it never reverts to the library.
Okay. And the lease itself will pertain only to the square footage of the parcel necessary for the project, correct? It won't be all of Shar Farm.
No, it will not. It'll be, essentially 18,000 square feet of Shaw. It's a 135-acre parcel, so it'll be pretty much at the top of the hill. And pretty much enough for, the building and ancillary uses, parking and so
And
forth.
all the rest will include the driveway as well?
access, yeah, thank you.
What's that?
Driveway as well?
Well, not the entire driveway, no. Shaw Lane will be owned by the town. When it gets up to the library, at some point, it'll become under the control of the library. This is all necessary for this grant, but ultimately, the maintenance and everything else, we'll have to figure out how that's done. I think beyond them getting control of that parcel of land, that's where it really ends. It's really, the library is a department of the town, and the town will be responsible for the care, custody, and control of that.
Okay, my concern obviously is I don't want to see that project impact, field development there or the use of the nature trails that are in the back.
No, not
So-
at all, because it's just at the top of the hill. in, essentially 18,000 square feet.
Okay, excellent. I have no further questions about the update. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to keep on that topic with the library, a couple things. Could we possibly or potentially give them 18,000 square feet anywhere on that land, and it can be moved after? So if we say, okay, this 18,000 square feet, here's a property to apply for the grant, but yet it's way back in wetland. Could we do that just so they have the 18,000 feet and then move the project when it does come to fruition, if it does?
My guess is no.
Okay.
Because that's kind of, dealing inappropriately with a state agency that has control over this grant.
Okay.
I think we tell them, this is the parcel of land that they're going to have control over. If the grant gets approved and the town meeting and everything else happens, then they get control of that. They can build their building, and then we're back to normal.
Now, what about the piece of land up here in the center? Is that off the table?
What piece?
The other piece that they were looking at potentially building?
Yeah, well, they were looking at 16 Uxbridge as well, which is, a couple properties down. That one was really off the table simply because water and sewer is not available to it.
Okay.
When sewer comes up to the center and water follows it, then it's a potential developable parcel. But it's just the timing's not right for the library because they feel like they need to apply for the construction grant now. That would be a great parcel for a library. It's central to the town. It would provide additional parking not only for the library but also for town residents when we have meetings and so forth. But the timeline didn't fit with them.
Okay.
So.
All right. Also, with the question on the fire department, the other employee, if or when, or the potential of the other employee coming back that's out now,
Yes.
would we continue to keep that person full-time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in the budget. It's been budgeted. So, yes.
Perfect.
Ultimately what that'll do is, a firefighter resigned back in 2000, Maynard, 11, 10?
Retired.
Yes, retired. And we left that position unfilled because we're in the heart of the recession. It was one of the cutbacks, and Fire Chief Maynard got to adjust to that, as well as cutting the training budget. I know. There's a lot of other issues as well, but
Spare tire on the truck.
we'll get to that some other day. But ultimately, I decided now was the time to bring on that additional duty crew member, to bring it back to where it used to be and it should be. But it is an impact. It is a financial impact, but
Yeah.
I feel like we have the revenue this year to support that.
Perfect. Rest has been hit. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. No more questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Jim, nice update in regards to the fire department. With all the new growth that we have coming on now, Market 32 and Lorden Propane and a lot of the other places in town now and potential sites that we're having, I think it's imperative that if we get the money in the budget, we really need that position.
I agree.
I think it's a good fit, and it just makes the fire department that more enticing, and they're there for us, for the citizens of this town.
Right.
And I think that's a good thing. In regards to the dams, my only thing was all these dams, the water, all the springs, the Singletary is pretty much all spring-fed from all of these, and as some of the other members said, we do have very clean water, and we try to maintain that, and that's been the goal of the Singletary watershed, as well as the town, to keep up on weed control and everything else, because a clean lake, there's more value to people's properties.
That's right.
And so I think that is very important for us to do. And in regards to insurance advisory, just have them do their homework. I think it's a good thing, and we should go out to bid, and because we just shouldn't accept one set of numbers, so we go out and let's see what happens in the end.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right.
Next on the agenda would be announcements.
I have an announcement that I have no announcements. Thank you.
You all set, Dave?
I'm good, thank you.
Paul?
I'll follow with the same.
Jesse?
I gotta hog the mic for a few minutes. First, I would like to thank Michelle again for coming in, Edelstein, and updating us about our Meals on Wheels program. And I would like to point out again the fact that there was a dance at the senior center last week, and $250 were raised. $5 donations per person, so there are 50 people there. And again, all of that money goes back into a program that supports our seniors, and that's just so important. So again, thank you to everyone who participated in that program. I would also like to thank Detective Bohannon, Sergeant Nudemarker, Officer Sullivan, and Reserve Officer Giro. Last Wednesday, we had a building committee meeting for the police department, and the department subcommittee put on a presentation that was spectacular. They went through and they showed the community pictures, realistic images of what our station is now, and they reported back on findings that they had at various site visits, because they went to other departments. And two things stuck with me. One was a comment by Reserve Officer Giro when he pointed that we only have one opportunity to do this right. So they're going full tilt to make sure that the proposal, once it comes before the community in Springtown meeting, will be the right proposal. No backtracking, that we're going to do it right the first time. And the second thing that I appreciated was the fact that they came back with pros and cons. They saw things that said, well, you know, it's not going to work for us. And they were very insightful in the fact that they wanted to make sure that that building, if it gets built with the blessing of the town, will be there for the community and serve the needs not only today, but 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road. So the amount of work that they put in and the presentation that they provided to the community was wonderful. And I believe the town has already put it up through the cable channel. So if anyone did not have a chance to tune in, you can go on the website and view it. So excellent job to them. And even though it should be announcements, I do have one question because I thought about it. Regarding the video, MIPA, was the MIPA meeting recorded? Do you know? And if so, will it be broadcast to the community? Just in case there are other questions.
That's a good question. I don't know, to be honest.
Cue the music.
I don't know, to be honest.
Okay, well, maybe next time we'll find
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
All right, thank you very much. I have nothing else. Thank you.
Mike?
I don't have anything. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And I don't either. Selectmen's Roundtable, correspondence, business topics.
Actually, they probably should have done this in announcements, but I will say one thing. We had a extremely minor incident at work last week, I guess, where we had our fire alarm go off. And it was, you know, it was a communication issue. It certainly wasn't a fire. But we did get a visit from Lieutenant Dresser. And I just wanted to, I guess, acknowledge just the professionalism and the insight that he provided us. And we're sort of new to that building, so he gave us a lot of sort of thoughts about, you know, what we should expect from the building and what issues we might have from the history that was there. So just wanted to say thanks.
Paul?
I'm all set, thank you.
Jesse?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Mike?
I have something to feed off of that with Dave. Selectman Hall had mentioned Saturday there was a fire in Oxford, and it was cold and it was freezing. You know, the wind was blowing, and I saw the local trucks coming, and then I saw Sutton go by. So, you know, again, it's taking care of communities around us that help us out. So say thank you to the fire department for helping a local neighbor.
Yeah,
We help all kinds
we do.
in Sutton.
And
Thank you,
if
Mr. Chairman.
there's nothing else before the board, we'll adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.